The cold pasta had already turned stiff by the time I heard the front door unlock. I checked the clock. 9:47 p.m. 3 hours late. Again, the candles on the dining table had burned down until little pools of wax spread across the plates. I almost laughed at myself. A grown man still trying to surprise his wife with dinner after 5 years of marriage. The sound of heels crossed the floor. Olivia stepped inside without looking toward the table. Her phone rested against her ear. No, tomorrow morning works. Ethan already finished the proposal, so I'll review it before the meeting. She walked past me, past the food, past everything I had spent the evening preparing. Her jacket landed on the couch. The call finally ended. Only then did she notice me. Oh, her eyes moved to the table. You waited? I thought we'd eat together. A tired smile touched her lips, but it never reached her eyes. You shouldn't have. I grabbed something after work. The words landed harder than I expected. I texted you. I know. She rubbed her forehead. It was a busy day. That answer had become part of our marriage. Busy day. Big meeting. Another deadline. Next week will be better. I nodded anyway. It's getting cold. You should eat. She headed toward the bedroom. No kiss. No hug. Not even a hand brushing against mine. Just another evening disappearing into silence. I sat alone and stared at the food until I couldn't remember why I had cooked it. Months earlier, little things had started changing. Olivia used to call me during lunch. She used to ask how my day was going. She used to laugh at stupid jokes that weren't even funny. Now, every conversation felt scheduled. Short, careful, like checking another task off a list. One name appeared more often than anyone else's. Ethan Brooks. He stayed late to help. Ethan fixed the presentation. Ethan thinks the client will love this idea. At first, I appreciated him. He was helping my wife succeed. That was all. Then I realized she smiled more while talking about him than she did while talking to me. That thought stayed inside my head long after she fell asleep each night. Saturday morning arrived. I poured coffee into 2 mugs. She hurried across the kitchen while fastening her watch. You have work today? Company event. It's Saturday. I know. She reached for her bag. It matters. I thought we planned breakfast. Her steps slowed. For 1 second, I thought she might stay. Instead, she checked the time. I'm already late. What about us? Her fingers tightened around the bag strap. We're fine, Daniel. Those 3 words hurt more than an argument. We're fine. People who are fine don't avoid looking at each other. People who are fine don't eat separate dinners every night. The front door closed. My coffee grew cold beside hers. A week later, she surprised me. My company is holding an anniversary celebration. She adjusted an earring while standing in front of the mirror. You should come. The invitation sounded almost forced. Still, hope is strange. It survives even after being disappointed 100 times. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe we would remember who we used to be. I rented a suit, bought flowers, even left work early. The hotel ballroom sparkled with music and expensive lights. People laughed around small tables. Servers carried drinks through the crowd. Olivia looked beautiful in a dark blue dress. For a moment, I forgot every lonely dinner, every unanswered message, every excuse. She belonged beside me. At least that's what I wanted to believe. I walked toward her with the flowers. Before I reached her, Ethan appeared. He leaned close while showing her something on his phone. She laughed. A real laugh. The kind I hadn't heard at home in months. Someone beside me smiled. You must be Daniel. I nodded. It's nice to finally meet Olivia's husband. Finally. That single word echoed inside my head. How often had she talked about work without mentioning me? Olivia finally noticed me standing there. Oh. She accepted the flowers politely. Thanks. No hug. No excitement. Just thanks. Ethan offered his hand. I've heard a lot about you. His smile looked friendly. Maybe it really was. Maybe the problem wasn't him. Maybe it was everything between Olivia and me. The evening continued. Every conversation pulled Olivia farther away. Whenever executives approached, Ethan stood beside her. When photos were taken, he naturally stepped into place. I waited. Surely she'd call me over. She didn't. Later, the company director raised a glass. I'd like everyone to recognize the incredible partnership between Olivia Carter and Ethan Brooks. Applause filled the room. The director waved toward the stage. Olivia smiled brightly. Ethan joined her. Someone behind me whispered, "They make such a perfect team." Another voice laughed softly. I thought they were married. Nobody corrected them. Not even Olivia. I felt the room shrinking around me. She looked across the crowd. Our eyes met. Just for a second. Instead of inviting me forward, she turned back toward Ethan as cameras flashed around them. That was the moment everything became clear. I wasn't competing with another man. I was competing with the version of Olivia that no longer wanted a husband. I had already lost. She simply hadn't told me yet. The drive home felt endless. The flowers stayed on the passenger seat. When I unlocked the front door, the house welcomed me with the same silence it always had. I changed into comfortable clothes, opened the refrigerator, started cooking, not because I was hungry, because old habits refused to die quietly. The food finished cooking. I placed 2 plates on the table. Then I stopped. Olivia wasn't coming home anytime soon. She had texted 20 minutes earlier. Working late. Don't wait up. I stared at those 4 words. Then I carried both plates into the kitchen. One went into the trash. The other stayed untouched on the counter. Slowly, I slipped my wedding ring off my finger. The pale line beneath it looked strange, like proof that something important had existed. I placed the ring beside the untouched dinner. No speech, no anger, just one quiet decision. Before sunrise, one suitcase waited by the front door. I packed only what belonged to me. Clothes, old photographs of my parents, a notebook, nothing from our wedding, nothing from the life that had slowly disappeared. The sky was still dark when I walked outside. I locked the door behind me. No note rested on the table. No goodbye waited in my pocket. The engine started. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as I pulled away from the house that no longer felt like home. A few miles later, my phone vibrated. The screen lit up beside me. Olivia. I watched her name glow in the darkness. My thumb hovered above the screen. Then I lowered my hand. The ringing continued until the display faded to black. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and empty promises. 1 bedroom, 1 couch, 2 boxes that still hadn't been unpacked. My suitcase rested against the wall exactly where I had dropped it 3 days earlier. The place felt quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. Every corner reminded me that I had walked away from a home I once believed would last forever. The phone stayed on the coffee table. No missed calls, no new messages. Part of me hated that. Another part wondered why I still cared. A knock broke the silence. Before I reached the door, it swung open. Lucas Reed stepped inside carrying 2 paper bags. "You forgot to lock it." I knew it was you. He placed 1 bag on the table. Wrong answer. It could have been a robber. If a robber wants my second-hand furniture, he can have it. Lucas laughed. "There you are." "What?" "That's sarcasm. I was worried it died with your marriage." A smile almost appeared. Almost. He handed me a sandwich. "Eat." "I'm not hungry." I wasn't giving you a choice. We sat across from each other. Neither of us touched the food for a while. Finally, Lucas leaned back. "You planning to live like a ghost?" "I'm just figuring things out." "No." His voice stayed calm. "You're waiting." My eyes moved toward the window. "For what?" "For Olivia to realize she made a mistake." The words landed harder because they were true. Lucas folded his arms. "If she knocks on that door tomorrow, what happens?" "I don't know." "Liar." He wasn't angry. He was tired. "You already know." I rubbed my face. I spent 5 years putting her first. And now, I don't even know what I want anymore. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn notebook. "You remember this?" I recognized it immediately. My business plan. The coffee company. Years ago, I dreamed about opening a small roasting business. I love coffee. Not just drinking it, learning it, creating blends, building something that belonged to me. Then Olivia received a huge promotion. We agreed to focus on her career first. Months became years. The notebook disappeared into a drawer. Lucas pushed it toward me. "Maybe it's time." I stared at the faded cover. "I don't know if I still can." You won't know sitting here." His words stayed with me long after he left. The next morning, I opened the notebook. The pages smelled old. Coffee shop designs, supplier lists, budgets, handwritten notes filled every margin. Dreams written by a younger version of me, a version that believed anything was possible. My phone buzzed. Olivia. Not a call. Just one message. "Where are you?" Nothing else. No apology. No explanation. Just 3 words. My thumb hovered above the keyboard. Then I locked the screen. If she wanted answers, she already knew where to find them. She only hadn't looked before. Days passed. Instead of waiting for another message, I visited coffee suppliers. I rented a tiny shared workspace. The first samples tasted terrible. The second batch burned. The third finally made me smile. Progress came slowly, but it came. Every small step reminded me that my life wasn't over. It was simply different. Late one afternoon, my phone rang again. This time I answered. "Daniel?" Olivia's voice sounded careful. "I've been trying to reach you. I noticed. You left without saying anything." I spent months trying to say something. The line stayed quiet. "I didn't think it was this bad." "I know." I came home that night. Her breathing became uneven. The ring was on the counter. I closed my eyes. So was dinner. I saw it. Another pause. I didn't know what to do. "You could have called." I did. I let it ring. Neither of us spoke. The distance between us felt much larger than a phone call. "I miss you." The words came out softly, almost like she wasn't sure she should say them. "I miss the woman you used to be." Another long pause. "I have to go." The call ended before either of us could pretend things were simple. A week later, Lucas invited me to lunch. He watched me stir my coffee without drinking it. She called. "Yeah." "You running back?" "No." "You sure?" I nodded. "It still hurts?" "It should." He smiled. "Pain means you're alive." I hate motivational speeches. "Good." He lifted his cup. I wasn't giving one. Work kept me busy. Each day added another small victory. One new customer. One new supplier. One more reason to keep moving. Then something unexpected happened. Grace Miller called. Olivia's older sister rarely contacted me unless something important happened. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all." She hesitated. "I thought you should know something." My grip tightened around the phone. "Is Olivia okay?" "Physically, yes." That answer didn't calm me. "What's going on?" "She's working all the time." "That doesn't surprise me. It's different now." Grace sighed. "Ethan has been pushing everything onto her." I stayed quiet. He takes credit when projects succeed. And when they fail, guess who gets blamed? The picture became clear. Grace continued. "She's exhausted. I warned her months ago." "I know. Why are you telling me this?" "Because she's finally learning that ambition has a price." I thanked her before ending the call. For a long time, I sat alone, not because I wanted Olivia to suffer, because I hated that she had traded our marriage for someone who only valued her when she was useful. That evening, curiosity got the better of me. I opened our old message thread. The last thing I had written before leaving appeared on the screen. "Dinner will be ready at 7. I hope we can finally spend one evening together." She never answered. Above it sat dozens of ignored messages. "Good morning. Drive safely. Good luck today. I'm proud of you. Take care." Simple words. Small acts of love. Left unread. I closed the app before the memories could pull me backward. Another week passed. A thick envelope arrived at my apartment. Legal separation papers. My name printed neatly across the front. The documents rested on the kitchen table for hours. Once, the thought of signing them would have broken me. Now they felt like a question only I could answer. I picked up the pen. My hand stayed steady. One signature. Then another. Ink across white paper. It looked so small, yet it marked the biggest decision of my life. Not revenge. Not anger. A boundary. The first real one I had ever drawn. I placed the papers back inside the envelope. As I reached for my coffee, the phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it. Something told me not to. "Hello?" A calm woman's voice answered. "Good afternoon. Is this Daniel Walker?" "Yes." I'm calling from St. Mary's Hospital. The mug slipped from my fingers. It hit the floor and shattered. We're trying to reach the emergency contact for Olivia Carter. Everything around me suddenly felt very far away. She still listed me? The drive to St. Mary's Hospital felt longer than it should have. Every red light became another chance to turn around. Every green light pushed me forward. I kept asking myself the same question. Why was I still going? The answer never changed. Because once, I promised to be there when she needed me, even if she had forgotten that promise long before I did. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. A nurse looked up from the front desk. Daniel Walker? I nodded. She's awake now. The doctors believe it was severe exhaustion, stress, lack of sleep, and dehydration. Is she going to be okay? She needs rest. The nurse paused. She still has you listed as her emergency contact. Those words stayed with me as I walked toward Olivia's room. The door stood slightly open. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair was tied back without care. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes. The woman who always appeared confident now looked completely worn out. A heart monitor filled the quiet room with steady beeps. She noticed me. Surprise crossed her face. You came. I got the call. I didn't know they still had your number. You never changed the form. A weak smile appeared for only a moment. I guess I didn't. Neither of us moved. Months earlier, I would have rushed to her side. Now I stayed near the door. Not because I hated her. Because I had finally learned that caring for someone didn't mean forgetting myself. You look different. So do you. She glanced toward the window. I've been trying to figure out what to say. You don't have to force anything. I'm not. Her fingers twisted the edge of the blanket. I just never imagined we'd end up here. I imagined it. Her eyes lifted slowly. Every dinner you skipped. Every message you ignored. Every time work came before us. I imagined this long before you did. She closed her eyes. No excuse came. No argument. Only quiet regret. The doctor entered a few minutes later. You can only stay a little longer. I thanked him. Olivia broke the silence. You don't have to come back. I know. You probably have better things to do. I do. The truth hurt both of us. She nodded. I hope you do them. I turned toward the door. Get some rest. Daniel. I stopped. I'm glad you answered the phone. I didn't answer. Some words are too heavy to carry. Outside the room, Grace Miller waited with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to me. You look exhausted. I slept. I wasn't talking about sleep. We found 2 empty chairs near the hallway window. Grace stared into her cup before speaking. I owe you an apology. You didn't do anything. I watched this happen. She shook her head slowly. I kept telling myself it wasn't my place. I stayed quiet. Olivia has always been terrified of failing. I know. No. Grace looked at me carefully. You knew she worked hard. You didn't know why. The hallway faded into the background as she continued. Our father expected perfection. Straight A's. Top universities. Perfect career. Nothing was ever enough. I remembered family dinners. The compliments always came with another expectation. Another goal. Another reason to work harder. Grace sighed. When Olivia finally became successful, she started believing that slowing down meant losing everything. In our marriage, her eyes lowered. She convinced herself you'd always be there. Those words landed harder than blame, because they sounded true. She didn't stop loving you. Grace's voice almost broke. She stopped protecting what mattered. I leaned back in my chair. There's a difference. She nodded. And now she knows. Before leaving the hospital, I walked past Olivia's room one last time. She was asleep. Her phone rested on the blanket beside her. The screen lit up. For a second I thought it might be Ethan. It wasn't. A message notification disappeared. Then another. She unlocked the phone. Her thumb moved through the screen. Even from the doorway, I recognized the conversation. Our old message thread. She scrolled slowly. Reading. Stopping. Reading again. The same messages she once ignored. I quietly walked away. Those words belonged to another version of me. The following afternoon, Grace called again. She asked Ethan to come. Did he? A bitter laugh escaped through the speaker. He sent flowers. That's all. He told her he couldn't miss an important meeting. I closed my notebook. So that's where his loyalty ends. It gets worse. I waited. He already volunteered someone else to take over her projects. What? He didn't even wait until she left the hospital. The room suddenly felt colder. Everything Olivia had built around him was already disappearing. Not because she was gone forever, because she was temporarily unavailable. People like Ethan only stay while they're gaining something. 3 days later, I met Lucas for coffee. He noticed my expression immediately. You visited her. Yeah. How do you feel? I watched steam rise from my cup. I wanted to help, but I also wanted to leave. Lucas nodded. Both things can be true. I don't hate her. I know. I just can't go back. He smiled faintly. That means you're healing. Business finally started moving faster. A local cafe agreed to test my coffee beans. Another owner wanted samples. The notebook that once gathered dust now filled with new ideas. Every success reminded me that I still had a future. One evening my phone vibrated. A message from Olivia. Not words, just a picture. It showed our old conversation. My unanswered messages stretched across the screen. Good luck today. Don't skip lunch. I made your favorite dinner. Drive safely. Love you. Each message had a small gray mark beside it. Read. Months too late. A second message appeared. I read every one of them today. Nothing else followed. I placed the phone face down. Some apologies don't arrive as spoken words. Some arrive as unbearable silence. A week passed without another message. Life slowly found a new rhythm. Then, just after sunset, someone knocked on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, my breath caught. Olivia stood in the hallway. No expensive suit. No perfect makeup. Just a simple sweater and tired eyes. Her hands trembled around something small. She lifted it carefully. My wedding ring rested in her palm. The same ring I had left beside the untouched dinner. I found it. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Neither of us moved. The hallway suddenly felt too small for everything waiting to be said. My apartment door stayed open. Olivia remained in the hallway, my wedding ring resting in her trembling hand. Neither of us reached for it. Neither of us knew where to begin. Finally, she stepped inside. The place was small compared to our old house. One bookshelf, a plain dining table, coffee samples lined up across the kitchen counter. Her eyes moved around the room. You built a life here. I'm trying. She nodded slowly. I almost didn't recognize you. I've been getting to know myself again. The words made her lower her head. She placed the ring on the table between us. I wanted to return it. You could have mailed it. It deserved more than that. I pulled out a chair. She sat carefully, as if afraid the room itself might reject her. I've replayed that night 1,000 times. I don't. Her fingers tightened together. I wish I could stop. I stayed quiet. Regret was finally speaking for her. She didn't need another lecture from me. I read every message. I know. Every dinner invitation. Every good luck. Every time you told me to drive safely. Her voice cracked before she finished. I answered none of them. No. I thought there would always be another chance. I looked toward the window. The strange thing about chances is that we don't know when we've used the last one. She covered her face for a moment. I don't expect you to forgive me. Good. She slowly looked up, because forgiveness isn't the same as going back. The room grew quiet again. Not uncomfortable, just honest. When she stood to leave, she hesitated near the door. Can we ever start over? I picked up the wedding ring and placed it back in her hand. We can't build tomorrow by pretending yesterday never happened. She closed her fingers around it. Then she walked away. This time I didn't wait for her to turn back. The following weeks moved faster than the months before them. The coffee business finally found its rhythm. A local cafe placed its first large order. Another owner recommended my blends to friends. Then I met Emma Hayes. She arrived carrying a folder full of design ideas. I've heard your coffee is better than your logo. I laughed. That's probably true. She spread several sketches across the table. I think your brand should tell your story. My story. You left something behind to build this. I stared at the drawings. Simple, clean, honest. You don't even know me. Emma smiled. I know enough. That surprised me. She cared about my dream before asking about my past. We spent hours discussing packaging, colors, and ideas. Not once did she interrupt me. Not once did she make me feel small. Working beside her felt easy. Not because she completed me, because she respected me. I had forgotten what that felt like. One afternoon, Emma stopped by the cafe where I supplied coffee. She handed me a printed label. What do you think? I smiled. This is perfect. You sure? I've never been more sure. She laughed. I'll take that as approval. At that exact moment, someone froze near the entrance. Olivia. She had come to drop off documents from the lawyer. Her eyes moved from the label in Emma's hand to the smile on my face. Then back to Emma. I didn't realize you were busy. Emma sensed the tension immediately. I'll give you two some space. She picked up her folder and quietly walked outside. Olivia watched her leave. Is she? My business partner. A tiny pause. Only your business partner? The question carried more pain than anger. I remembered standing inside that hotel ballroom, watching Ethan beside her, wondering the same thing. It hurts, doesn't it? She closed her eyes. I understand now. You understand the feeling. I folded the legal documents. But you still don't understand how long I carried it. She nodded without arguing. There was nothing left to defend. Days later, news spread through the city faster than I expected. Lucas burst into my workspace holding his phone. You need to see this. He handed it to me. A business article filled the screen. Senior Executive Ethan Brooks removed following internal investigation. I read quietly. False reports. Credit stolen from coworkers. Manipulated performance reviews. Misused company resources. Everything finally came to light. Lucas leaned against the table. Karma finally found him. I placed the phone down. I don't feel happy. No. I feel finished. He smiled. That's even better. Grace called that evening. You've probably heard. I have. Ethan blamed everyone except himself. I expected that. His career is over. I stayed silent. Grace continued. Olivia resigned. That surprised me. She worked so hard for that position. I know. Why? She walked into her office and realized there wasn't anything left worth fighting for. The call ended a few minutes later. I found myself staring at the coffee machine. Success without peace suddenly seemed meaningless. Maybe Olivia had finally learned that lesson. A week later we met at the old house. The realtor needed both signatures before listing it for sale. Walking through the front door felt strange. The rooms looked smaller. The laughter we once shared no longer lived there. Olivia wandered into the living room. She stopped suddenly. The wall above the fireplace was empty. Our wedding photo. I took it down before I left. She touched the faded rectangle where sunlight hadn't reached. I didn't even notice. I know. A sad smile crossed her face. That's the problem. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away. I thought love disappeared in one big moment. She traced the outline left on the wall. It doesn't. No. It leaves little by little. Every ignored dinner. Every missed conversation. Every promise pushed to tomorrow. She turned toward me. By the time you packed your suitcase, her voice almost disappeared. You had already been leaving for months. I nodded once. You finally understand. We sat across from each other in the lawyer's office. Two identical folders waited on the table. The lawyer explained the final details. I barely listened. Everything important had already happened long before today. He slid the papers toward us. I signed first. The pen moved easily. No shaking hands. No second thoughts. Olivia picked hers up. She stared at the blank line where her name belonged. For several seconds she didn't move. Then she signed. The sound of the pen scratching across the paper felt quieter than I expected. She placed it down carefully. Her eyes met mine. I finally understand why you left. There was no anger in her voice. Only truth. And somehow, that hurt more than any apology ever could. 6 months changed my life more than the previous 5 years ever had. The tiny apartment no longer felt temporary. Coffee bags filled one corner. Boxes waiting for delivery filled another. The business that had once existed only inside an old notebook had become something real. Every morning began with the smell of fresh coffee instead of cold disappointment. Every evening ended with plans for tomorrow instead of wondering why my wife wasn't coming home. The pain hadn't disappeared. It had simply stopped controlling me. That was enough. Emma walked into the workshop carrying 2 cups of coffee. I know this sounds strange. I accepted one with a smile. You're bringing coffee to the guy who roasts coffee? She laughed. I wanted to see if yours was really better. And she took another sip before answering. I still have a job because yours wins. A small laugh escaped me. You almost had me worried. She leaned against the table covered with shipping orders. The bookstore downtown wants to stock our gift boxes. Our. She noticed the word too. A quiet smile crossed her face. I guess it is our project now. It is. Working beside Emma never felt like carrying someone else's dreams. We built things together. If she disagreed with an idea, she explained why. If I made a mistake, she helped me fix it instead of making me feel smaller. Respect had become something normal again. I never realized how much I had missed that. Lucas visited later that afternoon. He picked up one of the coffee bags and whistled. Remember when you almost threw this dream away? I remember. He looked around the busy workshop. I also remember someone insisting life was over. I was wrong. No. He shook his head. You were hurt. A delivery driver entered to collect another order. When the truck pulled away, Lucas folded his arms. You've changed. I hope so. You don't spend every conversation talking about Olivia anymore. I smiled. Some days I don't think about her at all. There he is. Who? The man I kept telling you still existed. A few weeks later, Grace called. Her voice sounded lighter than before. I thought you'd like an update. How's Olivia? Better. I stayed quiet and let her continue. She found a smaller job. No management. No fancy office. Just honest work. I pictured Olivia sitting at a simple desk instead of chasing impossible expectations. Is she happy? Grace took a moment before answering. I think she's learning the difference between success and peace. I'm glad. You really mean that? I do. Another short pause followed. She still talks about you. I know. She doesn't expect anything. I know that too. Grace let out a slow breath. I think she'll always regret losing you. Regret had become part of Olivia's story. It no longer had to become part of mine. Autumn arrived. The trees outside the workshop turned shades of gold and red. Emma and I locked the front door after another busy day. She brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Can I ask something? Of course. Why coffee? The question surprised me. I looked across the quiet street before answering. It brings people together. She waited. My parents used to sit together every morning with 2 cups before work. I smiled at the memory. They talked. They laughed. They listened. I looked down at the cup in my hand. I guess I spent years trying to build that kind of home. Emma didn't interrupt. She simply stood beside me. Sometimes kindness is knowing when not to fill the silence. I'm building something different now. She nodded. Something stronger. The final paperwork for selling the old house arrived the next week. One last meeting. One last signature. One last goodbye. The realtor handed us the keys after everything was complete. You can take a few minutes if you need them. When the office door closed behind him, Olivia reached for a small cardboard box resting beside her chair. I found these while packing. She pushed it toward me. Our old memories. Family photos. Vacation tickets. Birthday cards. The life we once shared. I placed the box on my lap, but didn't open it. Olivia watched my hands. There's one more thing inside. I already knew. Even before lifting the lid. The wedding ring rested on top. Exactly where she had placed it months earlier. It caught the afternoon sunlight for a brief moment. Once, that ring represented forever. Now it represented a lesson I would never forget. I closed the box gently, without touching it, without taking the ring out. Thank you. She blinked slowly. That's all. What else is there? I don't know. She gave a small, sad smile. I spent months imagining this conversation. So did I. And I realized conversations can't rewrite the past. She nodded. I understand. The strange thing was, I believed her. Not because she cried. Not because she apologized. Because she had finally stopped searching for excuses. She stood and picked up her coat. I wanted to tell you something before we leave. I waited. You were never hard to love. Her voice remained calm. I was too blind to see how much you were giving. The words settled quietly between us. I kept chasing a future. She looked toward the window. Then one day I realized I had traded away the person who would have made that future worth living. No answer came from me. None was needed. She smiled through tired eyes. I hope she's good to you. Who? The woman who eventually shares your life. I thought about Emma, not as someone waiting to replace Olivia, not as someone sent to rescue me, just someone honest, someone kind, someone who respected the man standing in front of her. I'll make sure I choose differently this time. Olivia nodded. I think you already have. She turned toward the door. Halfway there, she stopped. I'm proud of the man you became. Then she walked away. I didn't follow. Some endings deserve to remain endings. The workshop closed early that evening. Emma waited outside with 2 cups of coffee. You look like something important happened. It did. Good or bad? I thought about the box, the ring, the empty house, the years I spent trying to save a marriage by myself. Then I thought about today, the business, the friends who never gave up on me, the future waiting ahead. Necessary. She smiled. I'll take that. We walked through the park without rushing. Children laughed nearby. Leaves drifted across the path. Life kept moving. So did I. That night, I placed the memory box on the highest shelf in my apartment. Not hidden, not displayed, simply finished. The wedding ring stayed inside. It belonged to the man I used to be, not the man I had become. I switched off the lights and stood by the window. Months earlier, I believed losing Olivia meant losing my future. I couldn't have been more wrong. Loving someone is never supposed to cost your voice. It should never require you to become invisible. It should never leave you eating cold dinners while hoping tomorrow will finally be different. Walking away had been the hardest choice of my life. It also became the most important one, because somewhere between the packed suitcase, the unanswered phone calls, the empty apartment, and the dream I finally chose to build, I found something I thought I had lost forever. Myself. Losing the woman I loved was never the end of my story. It was the beginning of becoming the man I was always meant to be.